The economy is always listed as the most important subject for many voters. If you were in Congress, what would you do to try to improve the economy, and what could you do as a congressional representative to ensure that people in the first district have access to plentiful, good-paying jobs?
Well, jobs obviously drive our economy, and I believe that building a workforce is what we need to drive our jobs and our economy in this district. Government doesn't create jobs, and no matter how many tax breaks we give, no matter how many business parks we build, we're not going to have good paying jobs come to this district until we have a highly skilled workforce. So I would, in Congress, work with the state of Tennessee to help promote skilled trade programs through places like TCAT, the Tennessee Centers for Applied Technology, and RCAM. Programs like that will help build up a skilled workforce, because I have a background as a machinist and an engineer. I've been working in manufacturing for the past 10 years, and I know the skills that we need to build up for this area so we can bring the jobs. Right now we've got companies that are looking for skilled tradespeople and they just can't find them. So building up the workforce through trade education, through skilled training, is the way I see our economy growing and bringing those jobs to this area.
What is the best way legislatively to prevent gun violence, and specifically school shootings and mass shootings?
Well, we'll start off by saying I'm an absolutist when it comes to the Second Amendment. I believe shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. So legislatively, we need to look at mental health care. That's one thing that is a common thread through these mass murders that happen. Looking at mental health care, making sure that we take care of people that need that mental, like I said, that health care before they get to the point where they, for some reason, decide that they need to commit these acts of murder.
What is your plan for fixing America's immigration problem?
Well, I support the president when he says that we need strong immigration policies, that we need to control our illegal immigration, and we need to vet everyone who comes into this country. I understand that we have to have compassion for people coming from places where they, for refugees and that kind of thing. Right now, I think we really need to look at how we take care of refugees from Hong Kong, given China's new security laws and what they're doing there. But we have to, like I said, we have to establish strong borders, and we have to make sure that everybody comes in here is vetted before we have to establish strong borders before we can do anything else. And then we need to hold employers accountable. If we're talking about illegal immigration, we need to hold employers accountable and dry up that demand for labor that comes from illegal immigration.
How important is it to not increase the national debt and to balance the annual federal budget?
Well, I think if we've learned anything from this current pandemic, it's that we've got so much spending. What I've been telling people is, it's like, in your family you might have a credit card for emergency expenses, and we've been living on that credit card for decades. So we've got to cut down our federal spending, and we've got to balance our budget. We've got to work and not balance it by just increasing taxes. We've got to actually look at cutting federal spending so that when an emergency happens like this pandemic, then we've got something to spare, and we don't just print $3 trillion. Because continuing this federal spending, continuing the like I said, the quantitative easing that the Fed's doing, that kind of thing, it's going to wreak disaster for our children and our grandchildren.
What, if anything, do you think President Trump could have done better in his handling of COVID-19?
Well, I think President Trump was in an impossible position. No matter what he did, I believe that somebody would be screaming that he did the wrong thing. I think that he did the right thing by allowing the states, the governors, to have control over their states, and I think he has generally done a pretty good job with it. not perhaps having such a broad spending. I would have liked to seen him have the Congress pass bills for spending bills individually, and not just like I said, a big $3 trillion omnibus.
Do you believe climate change is real? And if you do, what do you think is the best approach to combat it?
I believe that climate change exists. However, I think we have to determine how much of it is within our control, how much of it is caused by man, and how much of it is caused by natural cycles of the sun and the earth, volcanoes, that kind of thing. I believe we need to be good stewards of our earth no matter what. And we need to look at feasible energy solutions. I am a big proponent of nuclear energy. Because if you do believe that that climate change is man-made, nuclear energy is the cleanest energy source that we have right now that is actually can be implemented in the time frame that the people who are worried about it propose. Again, I'm not against renewable energy, but if we're going to be practical and we're going to apply something, I think we need to take a hard look at nuclear energy and at the current technologies, things like breeder reactors, things like reactors that can reuse the waste from the 70s technology that we've got right now. Newer technology allows us to have cleaner nuclear energy with less long-term waste.
If you were elected to Congress, what would you do to address the racial tension that's evident in recent protests? And how would you try to improve race relations in the 1st District?
Well, I think that the race issue, it exists, but I think there are more underlying problems. Something that I've been advocating for from the beginning of my campaign and before we had these protests is criminal justice reform. I believe that I believe in law and order, and I believe that we need to punish crimes appropriately. However, I believe that once somebody has served their time, once they've paid their debt to society, that we need to get them back into our communities and back to being productive members of society. Because I believe that every felony shouldn't carry a life sentence. And right now, if you have a felony conviction, no matter what it is, basically you're a second-class citizen. You can't vote, you can't have a gun, you can't. It's very hard to get a job, and that leads to the recidivism issues that we see. And so, I think, and that affects not just the black community. That affects all of us. And I think those things like that, things like criminal justice reform. I'm not, obviously I'm not the kind of guy who wants to defund the police, but I do think we need to look at the issues, because the small number of bad cops make it look bad for everybody, and there are some issues we need to look at with that. But I believe in making things better for everyone and trying to give everyone, a piece of that American dream and giving real liberty to everyone. And I believe that if we treat everyone equally and we give everyone those opportunities, that will help heal the divide. Now, I also want to represent everyone in this district. And I will have an open door policy. Whether you agree with me or not, if we can have a civil discussion, I want you to come talk to me. I want to be able to say, okay, we don't agree on everything, but let's find some common ground. Let's not be enemies just because, I have R by my name and you've got a D by your name, or I come from, a rural community and you're part of an urban community. We're all human. We're going to disagree on some things, but I guarantee you there's something we can come together and agree on, and that's what I want to do for the whole district.
Do you support a regional economic development effort that could involve merging economic development organizations like Networks in Sullivan County and NetRep in these 3 counties, and also even possibly chambers of commerce in the Tri-Cities? And if so, what role should or could a congressperson take in that?
Well, I think regionalism is a double-edged sword. We look at it and we say, okay, well, if we work together, we can help the area, and that's true. but also it can neglect the more rural areas. We can't focus 100% on the Tri-Cities and forget about Johnson County or forget about Cocke County, Hamlin County. We've got so many, this district is so spread out, and it involves so many different type of communities. Like I said, very rural. I live in Stony Creek, and I'm far away from everything. So I think that working together is always a good thing, but at the same time, I don't want to do it to the exclusion of our more rural communities, because that's where people have less opportunity, and I think centralizing things takes away from that. As a congressman, my job, I'm applying for something in the federal government, and there are regional development grants and that kind of thing that we can work with. But I really believe that I need to make sure that the people that have the least advantage in the district are treated fairly.
Is there any approach President Trump has taken to his job that you would have done differently?
Well, I disagree with him when it comes to like his ban on bump stocks that he had the ATF do. I think sometimes while he has done a lot to negate some federal regulation, I tell you that one was one that hit me pretty hard and made me say, Mr. President, that's not the executive's job to rewrite the laws that Congress has passed. And when he gave some implicit support for red flag laws, that made me have a pause. Overall, I think that he has done the best job that he can do, given the resistance to his presidency.
All right, we're to the last question.
Okay.
This is a moment for you to speak to voters about what makes you the best person to represent them.
Okay. Well, if you believe that we need to keep the establishment, keep the status quo, keep the things that have gotten us to where we are, then I'm probably not the candidate for you. But if you believe that we need to actually flush the swamp out, President Trump was elected to drain the swamp. We got to flush it out with fresh water. We've got to get rid of establishments. We've got to get rid of the career politicians. And if you believe that, and you look at the people that are running in this race that aren't career politicians, who haven't held elected office, I believe I'm the strongest candidate. I live my values. I'm a foster parent. That's something that I believe if I'm going to be pro-life, then I've got to do something to help those children who are in homes that don't love them or don't take care of them the way they need. Something I want to do is promote adoption, because I know that when we stop abortion, we're going to have more children who are unwanted, and we've got to do things to make it easier for a family to help to be able to give that child a loving home. So I live that out. When you're not going to find anyone stronger on the Second Amendment, I live that out. And I've got the experience in manufacturing. I know the skills. When a politician says we need experience, he's saying we need somebody with experience in the swamp. But I've got experience where it counts. I've got experience in manufacturing. I know the job skills that we need to build up the jobs in this area, help the economy in this area. I'm a veteran. I've already served this country once, and I want to do it again. And I know what it takes to have a strong national defense, while at the same time not engaging in 20 years of war. So if those are the kind of things that are important to you, then I'm the most qualified candidate, and I'm here to serve the district. And if anybody wants to find out more about me, they can go to jadkinsforcongress.com or J. Adkins for Congress on Facebook and Instagram.
Jay Adkins, thank you. Appreciate you coming into the studio, and I hope you have a good rest of your day as the temperatures continue to rise. into the afternoon.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.